Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm your host, Cheryl Hentz, and very pleased to welcome back to the show two people from our current City Council. To my left, we've got Mayor Steve Cummings, and to my right, we've got another Steve. I can't go wrong tonight.
No.
I look at someone and I say Steve, and I'm in good shape.
And he's deputy mayor.
And he's the deputy mayor, Steve Herman. So both have been on the council for a long time. How long now for you?
I'm finishing my fourth term, so it'll be 8 years on the city council.
Okay. How long have you been on, Steve?
8 years. We were elected at the same time.
Yep, we were
Okay.
elected,
So
same year.
5 as council and 3 as mayor.
Okay, well, wonderful. Well, I'm glad to have you both here because there's so much stuff that we want to talk about tonight. Lots of things happening in the city, lots of good stuff, and of course, bad stuff. You know, you can't have good without the bad and vice versa. So we're going to try and cover a lot of stuff tonight. And then about 30 or 40 minutes from now, we'll be joined by, these guys will be leaving. They've got things to do and places to go. And Jake Krause, who's he's in his first term on City Council. He's got 10 months under his belt already. He'll be joining us to talk about his time so far on the council. So stick around for that. So let's talk about one of the big things that's happening right now. And I've done a show on this already, but there is a big issue with a lot of students who are unable to be bused to school because they don't live out of the city, but yet they can't afford to ride the city bus or Uber or the cab or whatever. So you guys have been collaborating with the Oshkosh Area School District on this. So tell us kind of where that's at. And Steve, whichever one wants to field it.
Well, I can start with
Let the
it.
younger go.
I can start with that, Cheryl. First off, state law requires any student that's 2 miles or less from the school has to provide their own transportation or their own means to get there. Okay, so there's been some concern, and Esther did a lengthy study looking at how many students that is, how is it impacting, you know, does it have a major impact? Well, what statistics showed, it's not a major impact of truancy or statistical, but we do have a number of students that don't have a decent way to get to school. So through the discussion, Bob Peschel, school board member Peschel, is chairing a task force to kind of look at not just that picture, but the bigger picture, because mobility is an issue in Oshkosh for people working, second shifts, getting from point A to B, doctor's appointments, things like that. And he's got some background in that area, so he's going to chair a committee to look at that. And I think we'll come to a compromise, just like we have worked out with UW Oshkosh and Fox Valley Tech, where they give a stipend to the city, and with an ID, the students can ride the bus free. So I think we'll get there, and we'll get this resolved so that any of those students that are fall through the cracks, as they say, can get there right. Because we want every student in school that needs to be there, wants to be there. So.
Yeah, and the group Esther, which you know, Steve mentioned it earlier, it's an ecumenical group,
Right.
Non-denominational, but they are people who deal very much with social justice type issues, and this is a social justice issue that they see. And you're right. I mean, every student should be able to get to school. And I guess in some of the surveys that have been done, there have been some truancies as a result of these kids not being able to get there. So Bob Peschel's has he actually put together his committee yet, or is that just sort of in the early stages?
I'm not aware.
There were several
aware of
council
if he
members
did.
that spoke up that would serve on that. Jake Krause is one who said he'd like to be involved. So I think he's just in the forming stages of that. Where it kind of got left is there are bus passes available through guidance counselors, principals, teachers that students can get that they should be able to get a ride yet this year, and it'll probably be an issue that'll carry through the rest of the school year into hopefully this summer, and be resolved by this summer.
Okay,
So
so
that by
when
next year
school starts up in September of
We hope to have this issue.
2019,
Yep.
hopefully the issue will be resolved.
Yes, that's
Okay.
our hope.
All right.
Well, the bottom line from that workshop with the school district was it is more than just a school issue.
Right.
As you said, it's
It's a community issue.
community as far as second shifts and so forth. So we thought rather than just looking at the one part of it, let's look at it as a total city transportation issue.
Sure, sure. Okay, good.
And that kind of also falls, sorry to interrupt, but falls into we're redoing our transit plan for the city of Oshkosh. So this kind of works hand in hand with the
Okay,
transit
so let's
advisory
go there.
board.
Let's talk about that.
Okay. Well, Caroline Pansky is the chair of the transit committee, and every 5 years we're required by federal guidelines to revisit and redo our transit plan. And so they're working through that and looking at the issues that are affecting transit in the greater Oshkosh area.
Okay.
We've changed some routes. We've added more bus stops. We've added more bus shelters. And so they're continuing to look at how can we improve our public transportation. You know, we'd love to expand hours, but feasibility-wise, ridership drops drastically after 5 p.m.
Sure.
There's been some talk about the business communities maybe supporting it. They don't seem to be that interested in supporting it financially. And so we have to figure out a way to expand that financially.
Maybe it would be a case of, talking to some of the more major employers who run 3 shifts around the clock. And
Right.
Maybe they would be more game for doing something like that.
Any public-private partnership that we could put together to make this work would be the best way to go.
Sure.
Because we can't put it on the back of the taxpayers. We just can't.
Sure.
Because not enough, I shouldn't say, our ridership is good, but they're just not the average citizen uses public transportation like they do in the bigger cities like Chicago, Milwaukee, things like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, that's
But
true.
there was discussion about working with some of the employers and also the big box stores. That we're taking the customers to them. We think they should help a little bit with the cost of
Right.
the transportation.
Have they been approached with that idea?
I'm not sure if Jim Collins and
I don't think so at this point yet. This is more like thinking outside the box thing.
Sure.
And this is maybe what Bob Peschel's committee will look at. He's done quite a bit of research prior to he worked with the Housing Authority in that, and so he's got some background in that area, vouchers and how that all works.
Sure, yeah.
And that, so he's hoping that we can get something worked out.
Okay. Well, speaking of big box stores, it's further on down my list, but since we're already talking about big box stores, let's go there. The old Kmart property.
Right.
Now that I was under the impression is going to be taken over by U-Haul for some
Correct.
storage.
Correct.
Is that still on? Is that still happening? Is that still in the
It's
works?
still happening. Their first time at the Plan Commission, we were pretty hard on them as far as design standards. We didn't want just this big orange neon sign on 41. And they've come back with some pretty good plans based on our requests. And our only concern is, will it turn into the one on Ohio where there's a lot of stuff just sitting out more and more and more? Because if it's not a gateway, it's a major thoroughfare through the city as you're going 41. And we're trying to upgrade all the architectural design standards and building standards throughout the city. And we were pleased that they responded to our request. And
Well, the reason I asked was because at one time, it was not up for very long, but there was a U-Haul sign that was there. And I said, oh, they must be getting ready to move in. And a few days later, the sign was gone.
Yeah.
And
Some of their
so-
designs and plans that they had brought forward, as the mayor said, didn't conform to our new code. And so they had to kind of go back to drawing tables and kind of re-look at how they're going to lay out, because they're going to have some outbuildings and they're going to have some other facilities on that site. So
Okay.
there may be fencing that needs to be added and some other things that will add to that aesthetics to the facility. So I think they just took the sign down temporarily.
Sure.
But
we're
as far
asking
as
for
we-
heavier landscaping,
Right.
much heavier landscaping.
Okay, all right. Well, and that's understandable. Do we have a timeline as to when they want to move in?
I've not heard one.
I think sometime this year. It won't take a whole lot.
No, to get it off the ground, because they're gonna remodel the inside of this store and have that, like, the indoor storage that people want and things like that. So I think a lot of that can be done after they're there.
Sure,
So it's
sure.
really more of the cosmetic side on the outside of what they need to do to be ready
Yeah.
to at least move over. And they are kind of boxed in where they are over on Ohio Street now. So a better location, more closer to the 41 corridor is probably what they're looking for visibility and things like that.
So would they leave the location on Ohio?
I've not heard if they are or aren't.
I would think so. Why would
But-
you want the 2 locations?
Yeah.
Someone, I don't recall exactly when, but all that blacktop, at certain points, some of that has to be removed. And
Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank as to what the triggering mechanism is, but get rid of that blacktop. And it's
So then we'd have another empty store that
Well,
we'd
we
have to
would,
fill.
but I think it's in an area of the city that could probably be turned into something different, maybe. I don't know at this point.
Well, you know, one of the things that we've got sitting around forever, and I know we've talked about it multiple times, and I'm going to go there again, is the old Pioneer Inn site. You know, there you've got something where the owner, I guess, just feels like he or she is not getting a fair price for their property, and so they're holding on to it, but it's sort of an eyesore. I mean,
It's
not
very
so
much
much,
an
it's
eyesore.
not so much in the winter because people don't go down there as much and people aren't, you know, on the lake or on the river, but it is an eyesore when we're in the summer and
Right.
late spring and early fall.
Well, 2 years ago about now, it would be about 2 years this spring, we did a boat tour around the facility, the mayor did, taking city staff and that. And we noted all the code violations and we've tightened that up. They've worked on cleaning that up. They've done some cosmetic, as they always say, put a little more paint on the pig.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they did that and they cleaned it up. And then,
still-
of course, Art Dumke, who has got a option to purchase and has an option with the marina, has cleaned up the marine area, has improved some things there. So there's some lifeblood there. But as far as anything actually coming forward to the city in a hotel or condominiums or anything, nothing's in the works. You know, maybe with the Menominee Nation Arena where it is and some of that Sawdust District, you know, you probably saw the Miles Kimball building is sold. So hopefully maybe that will spur someone else to take a look at the Pioneer property and get something moving. The misnomer is a lot of people think we have a lot to do with the Pioneer property and we don't. All we
Right.
can do is code enforcement things. We cannot, at this point, we don't own the property. We can't do a lot with the property other than the code violations that we can address.
Are they current on, I mean, are there any outstanding code violations right now?
Not that I'm aware of, and they do pay their taxes.
Yeah.
If it was 50 grand a year, they paid them like clockwork. When I first got on council,
50 grand a year, is that what you said?
50 grand.
Yep.
When I first got on council, I met with the owner. His name is Jeff Kylieber out of one of the Milwaukee suburbs, and he came up here. It was Mark, Alan Davis, myself. He seemed very amenable to doing something, and then he went back to Milwaukee. He was building a shopping center in Lakeland, Florida, and a hotel in Clearwater, and he ran into some major problems. What they were, I don't know, but he sort of dropped off the map. He's an older guy, and I keep, this sounds terrible, but I keep thinking at some point he's going to want to start divesting of his investments.
Yeah.
And he doesn't need the money. He has no connection to the community.
Yeah.
Well, as I just sit here, I mean, it seems silly, in my estimation, to continue to hold on to a property where you're paying 50 grand a year in property taxes. He's still having to maintain insurance on the place. And, you know, I would imagine you have to keep some utilities running just so pipes don't freeze.
Yeah, we haven't been inside the building, so we have no idea what the
Yeah, I
inside
mean,
looks like.
there are costs just to hold on to
Yeah,
a
you would
piece
think
of
so.
land. And so I would think he would be motivated to, you know, get rid of it to
As far as we
someone.
could tell that day, we took our boat out there, and we got as close as we could, because the city, we cannot get on the property. But I told my son, get it as close as you can without
Without nicking up the boat.
taking the prop off. And so we had Andy Prickett, one of the inspectors, with it. He got some pretty good photos from the boat. And you just have to assume that there's been creatures living inside what's left of that building. And it's like a house. I mean, once
Sure.
the roof starts going, it's on its way out. Every year it sits, that harbor gets more silted in, and it hasn't been dredged.
Probably.
According to my son, he worked there when Bergstrom owned it as a harbor master, probably 15, 20 years. So every year the silt gets higher, and that is costly to get all that taken out.
And I think we're getting to the point now where it's going to almost get to be cost prohibitive. So is there a future for there? Yes. What that is, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, maybe in the end, it'll be to a point that the city could purchase it and turn it into a park. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else you could, you know, eventually the buildings, what's left of the buildings are going to have to be just demolished, and then you're going to have to start from scratch. So,
Right, right.
What type of investment that would be, I have no idea. All the dealings with the DNR that held it up for a little while, that's all been resolved. All the issues are taken care of. So anybody that would buy it and move forward with the project knows exactly what the ground rules are.
Sure.
The
Is
money-
Go EDC trying to help the owner
not
with
sh-
marketing this at all?
I'm
or-
not sure what they're doing, but I was going to say the big money maker there, when the harbor was full, was the boats, obviously, and a big money maker was the in and out. That was a
Sure.
huge profit center.
In and out. What?
When you put take the boat out in the fall,
Oh, okay. All
and
right.
then you put it back in the spring,
Okay.
that was that big travel lift. That was $1 million worth of machinery, and that.
Sure.
Wow.
Sure. Yeah.
But it was a big money. It was. My son said that was the big money maker for the hotel.
If if it got to the point where the building was just so run down, can you just declare it uninhabitable
Yeah,
or
we could
whatever,
do
and
a
then
raise
it has
and
to be
repair.
raised?
Yep, we would probably, and we're probably at that point. We haven't pursued that as a city yet, but it's probably at that point where it probably, we knew there were people squatting in it for a while.
Oh, really?
Living in it. We were able
Along
to,
with the critters, right?
Yep, we were able to get rid of
Probably ate
that
the
problem. But it's probably to the point now that we could probably condemn it, the property, and move forward that way.
And that's a shame for the person who owns it also, but there has to be an end game here somewhere.
Sure,
If-
and and
That
that's the
thing's
thing.
been vacant for how many years? Is it?
13 now, I think.
Okay.
13 now. Though it's the building's gonna have to come down. There's no way to redeem it. What's really sad is when you go to the Nomination Arena in the parking lot, you can see the Pioneer. The first time this was built, you've got a great view from land of the Pioneer. And it looks pretty sad and tired right now.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, let's talk about, since we're on the subject of buildings and land, let's talk about where the Penny's store used to be and where the Walmart store used to be. We've talked about it before, not so much with you, Steve,
No.
but I know you and I have talked
Right.
about it, Steve. And, it's in the airport overlay, I get it. But is anything being done through Go EDC or the city's community development department to market that to a business that would fit into the airport overlay?
We gave Mark Roloff a goal of putting together a plan to start selling a lot of the city-owned industrial land. I mean, it's been sitting there for how many decades?
Oh, yeah.
And this would be, while this is not owned by us, that would be part of it, get something to develop to put there. It's sad because the airport is restricting almost anything that can go there.
Right. We've had a couple things try to move forward, and one was a restaurant, and it looked like that was go, but there were some capital issues, so that gentleman didn't pursue that. There was a couple other
Sam's Club.
look-sees. Sam's Club was going to build there. Then they had some restructuring in their corporate entity. We had already approved everything, and then they chose not to move forward. And just recently at Tuesday's council meeting, we turned down actually a project for the site. It's going to be almost like another U-Haul.
Okay.
A company put forward a proposal. We thought it was not a fit for that property,
Okay.
and the council voted it down.
Okay.
So where will that corporation or that company, and I don't remember the name off the top of my head, come back with a different plan or a different idea for that property? I don't know. But what was proposed initially was turned down.
Yeah.
I think what we're feeling, we don't have to be desperate on development.
Right.
I mean, there was a period when I think the city was desperate. We did some things that we probably regret a bit. So I think we're taking now, because of the Nomination Arena, Oshkosh Corp, we feel that we're going to be looked at in a much different light by people than we were in the past. I mean,
Right.
I'm in Madison enough, and I'm on the league. We're both with the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, but I go to a lot of functions. I've got other mayors saying, "What's going on in Oshkosh? It's not the same city." I've got people coming here. It's what's happened in the last decade. It's just totally changed.
Well, and part of that too, to go with the economic development, you've been in the Oshkosh scene for a long time. We have a lot of underperforming TIFs districts in Oshkosh. Several years ago, the council said, we can't do business as we've been doing business. So through the Long Range Finance Committee, through staff, through the Planning Commission, that we changed our TIF policies, and now all our TIFs are PAYGO TIFs. So there has to be, there's just a lot more, less risk to the city,
Yes.
to the
Yes.
city,
No risk.
and more risk to the developer. So that's upping the bar. They're having to come in with more collateral. They have to come in with more dollars to the program, and it has changed the landscape, as the mayor said, where these developments are happening. Good example, the Morgan property. They're going to be moving those trucks off of there. They're in violation of our city code now. Oshkosh Corp is building a site on the south end of the city and the town of Nakaimai to park their trucks. They're going to be having to dispose of the gravel piles and things, and hopefully then they'll start to really look at developing that property. And we're willing to help them. They already have a TIF.
It's sitting idle.
And it's sitting idle. So we've done our end. It's up to them now. So again, we're here to work with businesses, and we're here to help. Go EDC was instrumental in getting Oshkosh Corp's global headquarters here. As the mayor said, we are looked at differently because we're not sitting on the sidelines. We're moving things forward. The Riverwalk, great example. The downtown hotel, great example. The convention center, the ice rink. It's all these things that have been happening the last 4, 5, 6 years has put us out there, and we are now a player. Can we compete with the Appletons and the Green Bays? Probably not quite the same way, but when you look at just Oshkosh and Oshkosh alone, we've done quite a bit in the last few years.
Sure.
But what they don't have, we have access to this 165,000 acres of water. It's very accessible. Appleton, you can't.
Right.
Green Bay is a little bit more because of Lake Michigan, but the whole issue with the arena between Racine and Sheboygan, and we obviously got it. I was interviewed by a reporter from the Racine Journal-Herald about how did we land Wisconsin Herd. I said it's all collaboration. Everyone, the whole community came together, and I got at my office, Sunday paper in Racine was, Racine's loss is Oshkosh's gain. And this reporter just nailed Racine for not working together on anything compared to Oshkosh was just, everyone comes out and it's like a barn raising. Let's get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good things that are happening, and yet, there's all these empty sort of, I don't want to call them decrepit, but I don't know what else you can call them. They're empty buildings that have been standing there forever. And, it would be nice to get rid of some of those and really get the city cleaned up a little bit more.
And to that point, that's one of the goals that the council did this year to the city manager was, as the mayor said, one is to put a marketing plan together for our commercial development land in our industrial parks. But the other piece is our neighborhood initiatives. The RDA has been spot blighting, buying properties and spot blighting, tearing down properties, and then selling the properties back out. We want a more formal plan. What is that plan? Is there sections of the city, maybe we need to tear down 3, 4 houses, or maybe we need to buy 3, 4 houses and rehab them, and then turn around and sell them. We did one of those on Bone Street. We bought a house on Bone near Melvin, and for back taxes, basically. Rehabbed it and sold it and made some income on it. Came back into the. So we want to plan for that because as Oshkosh Corp grows, as some of our other economic development, if the aviation industrial park takes off, we need housing for these people.
Sure.
And we don't have a lot of good single family housing. Our market for that is low. Now we can do some of that through annexation, and we just annex some land and they're going to be developing a subdivision out there. But the inner city, the central city, needs to have some better housing options for citizens that don't want to live out on the fringes of town, maybe need downtown facilities and that. So we need to work on that, and that's a goal we put the city manager to put together a plan to look at that.
Well, the other thing, the mayor should or does chair the RDA
And explain for folks what that is.
Regional Development Authority.
Okay, there you go.
And it was basically we've taken down all the old industrial. There's not a whole lot of old industrial left.
Right.
And when I first started to chair it, I said, we've got to focus more on neighborhoods. So we're starting to look at, as Steve said, do we buy blocks versus a house? We all know there are blocks that desperately want to be torn down.
A good example is right over by High Street, by the Old Town Motel. There's 3, 4, or 5 of those homes in that
Yeah.
area that are just junk. I mean, if you blew the wind
Well, there's
hard,
something else along there I'd like to see the city tear down.
but those, you take
I won't
take a
say it,
section.
but-
That's like almost a block.
That-
could
that-
you tear those down? Put out an RFP for a developer to come in and maybe put some nice multi-housing in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been working with Advocap over by the old hospital. We built some
Yep.
apartments over there for people with disabilities and things like that. So we are finding areas of the city that we can do some of this in, and of course now the Housing Authority bought the old Waite building.
Waite Carpet Company.
Yes,
Okay.
and they're rehabbing that, so that you're going to see something happening there. That's off of the Harrison area there. And so there are sections of the city that we are targeting a little bit and looking at rehabbing
Sure.
and making it more affordable housing for people.
Okay.
Another thing we also have, and I wasn't aware of this, but we have a program with the city that if you convert a home that was built as a single family, became a 2-family. You know what that means? There's a
If you
kitchen,
have
one of the
expired or
bedrooms
unused
upstairs.
medication,
There's a financial incentive to take that back to a single family.
Okay.
And
that's
no one
the-
knows it
right.
exists.
And that's the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
thing. People really need to contact City Hall because we have so many grant programs and other grant assisted things for rehabbing homes, remodeling homes, having handyman people come in. There's a lot of help in the community. You just have to reach out and ask for it.
Okay. We're down to probably about 8 minutes here, and I know, Mayor, that you wanted to talk about 2 things in particular. One, and I know we're really shifting gears here from development, but I want to make sure we get these in before this segment wraps up. The Lakefly Public Project, it's an art project.
It's an art project.
Tell folks what it is.
It's our should be our city animal, but I'll do this. I know we're sure. I will do this real quick. I was at a league conference. Were you there? It was the one in
Yep.
Madison.
Yep, we've got a
And
Sparkle
there
one.
was a morning session, and the speaker was talking about, you know, the city should be fun type of thing. He was talking about some community that was having a hard time with people in their main downtown. They came out with a little mouse design, you know, hunt for the mice. And I was sitting next to Peck, and we said the lake fly. And that we just let it kind of drop and didn't say much. And then there was this Spark Award, which is put out by the WIA Trust, which is Wisconsin Educational Association Trust, and we got a $3,000 grant. So we ordered the prototype lake fly, and we've got sponsors for it, and we've got the school district involved, Convention and Visitors Bureau, Aurora. I'm trying to go through the list. The bid board.
So what are people doing?
Their own thing. It's sort of, we've got Evergreen Manor. So it's like the Lion Project or the
Nutcrackers.
Nutcrackers.
They're going to paint the lake fly and then sell them.
Okay.
No, we're not going to sell.
Not selling them?
No,
Or
they-
they've already paid for them or sponsored them?
They sponsored. It's very reasonable. It's like $2,500. You can either pick a design. We've had artists submit designs, or you can have your own group do it. The high schools are having their students do it, which is our goal. So is Evergreen Manor, one of their classes. So our plan is to unveil, if you will, May 5, which is real close to Mother's Day,
Yes, it is.
when we have our Unity and Community event at the Lead. So we're kind of combining 2 programs.
Sure.
That,
Well, let's talk about that real quick, the Unity and Community event. Tell us about that.
Unity and Community is something I have been talking with, I don't know if you know Sylvia Carey Butler at the university.
Sure.
She and I were talking about this for at least a year, and she was gone so much that we'd meet when she was in town, we'd talk. And then we got Chief of Police Smith involved, and we said, we've got to pull the trigger. We can't keep talking about this. Let's just do it. And we're doing it. It'll be from 11 to 3 at the Leach. The focus is educational for children, kind of through food and customs. So we've got different entertainment groups lined up, African Americans, the Hmong community, there's a Japanese group, I'm going to say drums. But we felt yeah, everyone likes to eat, so let's use food as kind of the draw. But we get the kids in there. We're going to try to walk through the 7 continents.
Okay.
So the kids can say, here's the food from this continent. It'll all be different stations, but yeah, the support has been great. Everyone, we have our steering committee meetings, and all people keep showing up. Like, well, can I don't care. You have to contribute.
Sure, yeah.
And we did send a sponsorship letter out, and Sylvia and I said, everyone wants to go after the major businesses in town for money. I said, let's go to those people who seldom get asked and have sponsorship levels down to a few $100s. The max is $1,000. We've been daily we're getting emails, and it's like
That's wonderful.
So
So again,
it's-
that's going to be May 5th also?
May 5th.
Okay, at the
Outside,
Leach.
At the Leach. Yeah.
And you'll combine the Lake Fly Art Project at the same time?
Yeah, we said we thought it would make sense. You know, we'll have two of the hatching was planned for Mother's Day anyway, so we're close.
Right, that's
But
exactly
it's
right.
fun. But the Lake Fly, have at it,
Yep,
folks.
that's right, that's right. Just real quickly, banning of smoking and tobacco products in parks. Now, we've only got about 2.5 minutes on this, but let's talk about that, and maybe we can also, with that,
Sure.
talk about the marijuana fines being lowered.
Well, I sit on the Parks Board, and that's where it came forward to the Parks Board. Rethink, Winnebago County's Healthy Initiative, has a student coalition, and they took that on as a kind of a project. They went around to the different parks, and they picked up ball jars full of cigarette butts and other tobacco products and that, and felt that we have a problem in the city of Oshkosh. So they did some research, looked at other communities. Other communities had ordinances that banned smoking in the parks and things like that. Where it came, the Parks Director recommended to the Parks Board that it be a park violation, not a city ordinance, because it's pretty unenforceable. It's gonna be would be really hard for, say, you're in the park and you see someone smoking a cigarette, you're gonna call the police department and have them cited. So it's gonna be kind of a park rule, and hopefully people will voluntarily kind of comply with that, being reminded by park staff or even the police department that smoking in it. And it's not just smoking, it's e-cigarettes, it's tobacco, chewing tobacco, it's all forms of tobacco products are going to be banned from the parks.
What if they're in their cars driving through the park?
Well, that would be probably something totally different, because like right now, Little Oshkosh, you can't smoke in the Little Oshkosh area.
Yeah.
So it's going to
Nor
be
the zoo.
or the
There's
zoo.
also
So it's
no
going to be
smoking.
more like at your sports facilities, your softball diamonds, your soccer fields, your open air type things. Somebody driving through the park. That's what I'm saying. So you can't ban it that way. And then
Yeah.
on the marijuana thing, we had 4,000 citizens that signed a valid petition. Council had to take some form of action. Myself, being a former law enforcement, I felt that we couldn't go down to $25 because, first off, it's still against the law. It's a state issue in a sense. The statute is still a violation of law. Our ordinance followed the state statute, so we actually had to redo our ordinance to adjust the fine. But a fine is what it's intended for two purposes. One is to have a punitive side, and one is to maybe change behavior. So until the law becomes legal, it's pretty hard for us to say that it's not a fine. So
Okay.
bringing it down, we felt was a compromise a little bit, and still yet making it that we would prefer people didn't smoke marijuana until it was
And
legal.
what is the fine right now then?
$200 plus cost, so it's
Okay.
like a $300 and some dollars.
Okay.
And I
all
guess
right.
I was the only one who voted against lowering the fine, and I'm maybe a little more jaded. My wife has been a counselor, a behavioral health counselor at Mercy for 30 years. And when she began 30 years ago, it was primarily alcohol.
Yeah.
And it's swinging now to drugs. And I've heard the horror stories that she can't tell me much of any. I don't know names. I don't.
Right.
But she just kind of shakes her head that she knows
Okay.
that she almost says that person is not going to live another year because
Yeah. Okay.
and the marijuana today is not your father's marijuana. This stuff
No,
is,
it's different.
it's
We got to
very
wrap
different.
things up,
All right.
though, real quickly. But thanks for being here. And
Thanks
what we
for
didn't
having
get
us.
to, I'm going to try to talk to Jake
Yeah,
about.
there you go.
So,
All right.
you guys just sit tight. We'll be right back.
If you have expired or unused medication, don't flush it, pour it down the drain, or toss it in the trash. Safely dispose of unwanted or expired medications at the drug drop box located inside the Oshkosh Police Department. It's convenient and anonymous, safe and secure, and it's open to everyone 24/7. Drop off your prescriptions, over-the-counter drugs, pet meds, and more. Keep drugs out of the reach of children and out of our water supply. Dispose of unwanted or expired medications at the drug drop box. For more information, visit the Oshkosh Police Department website at oshkoshpd.com.
Looking to give back to the community? Want to help fight hunger in the Oshkosh area? You can by donating food, your time, or your money. The Oshkosh Area Community Pantry needs more than 250 volunteers to operate and can always use new faces to help with a wide variety of tasks. The pantry cannot do it without you. Please consider helping fight hunger in Oshkosh. For more information, visit us online at oacptoday.org. That's oacptoday.org.
It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. It's said that a narrow vision is divisive, a broad vision expansive, but a divine vision is all-inclusive. Welcome all groups of citizens working for the greater good of the community. Speak your piece and be inclusive. The Oshkosh Civility Project is a community-based effort. More information at oshkoshcivilityproject.org.
And welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh, joined now by Jake Krause. He's in his first term on the City Council, and very happy to have you with us here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
How are you faring so far? You holding up? You're 10 months in.
Yeah.
How's it been going?
Some weeks it's felt, or some days it's felt like it's been a couple days on council. Some I've been on it for a long time. It's been a challenge at times. I'm learning, picking things up here and there, and feeling more comfortable all the time. I'm having a great experience with it. My goal was to kind of get more involved in the city planning and dig in a little and learn and get to know people and go out into the community and talk to people and get their feedbacks and kind of present myself as them on council, just
Sure.
a melting pot of Oshkosh.
Yeah. So now, besides the council then, Jake, what boards or commissions are you like the staff liaison for?
Sure, I'm on traffic review, so
Okay.
it has a lot to do with like the where the bus pickups happen, where a stop sign would go into effect, stuff like that, like different pickups. And then I'm on the Landmarks Commission, which I talked to the mayor about before I got elected. I said, I want to be on this one if I get elected, and he's actually on that one too. So they have two council people on it, so it's kind of like a good group that we
Yeah,
have, and
yeah.
a lot of local historians that they
Yeah.
kind of.
Why was that one so important to you?
Well, we live on Washington, me and my wife, and we have a 5-year-old boy, 7-year-old boy, and a newborn daughter that we had 2 days after the election. So it's like we went to go have the baby the day after the election, and we got sent home, so she was kind of disappointed, and I was disappointed too. But we live on Washington. Before we moved there, me and my wife, when we dated, we walked up and down that street, and I'd always point at houses I liked, and she'd get mad at me for pointing too much and slowing down. And I said, we're going to have one of these one day, and we have one now, so we're happy.
Are you in one of those big, huge houses on Washington?
Yeah, we got one of the big ones.
Wow.
Yeah, some days I love it, then other days I just want to move into like a little ranch home.
You want to downsize?
Yeah, so who knows what's in our future.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, good for you. So so I can see where that would be important. So 10 months into this council thing, do you think it's what you thought it was going to be?
There's some things that I thought it was, and then there's some things that I didn't have any idea. Like I just didn't know all the community questions that would come my way, and the emails and the phone calls. Like I'll get phone calls sometimes at 7 o'clock in the morning when I'm at work that I just gotta send a voicemail, and call them back later on
Yep.
the day, and then I get emails at night, and I've had a couple people knock on my door to talk to me.
Yay.
So yeah, so I mean it's very involved, but I like it because it's
Yeah.
getting to know the community, getting to be involved. So I'm enjoying it.
You know, I know when you were campaigning last year, you would hear from a certain segment of the community, things that they wanted changed or things that they wanted to stay the same. But now that you're actually on that council dais and fielding questions from everybody and opinions from everybody from all different angles and all different walks of life, you know, what are you hearing the most? And has it changed since last year when you were campaigning?
It's pretty much the same concerns. I mean, like one person's large experience of having something wonderful come in, like the arena, is another person's, well, it's just going to be an empty building in 5 years. And there's a lot of doubt and, you know, thinking that it's just going to turn out bad. Because there's been things in the city, just like any other city, that went bad. But I keep on reassuring there's things coming into it. You know, in 5 years from now, I think there's going to be a lot of nice attractions that come to Oshkosh. I know that both high schools are going to use it for their commencements.
Yes.
So that's really exciting. And then just this past council meeting, we had the storage facility proposal come in for JCPenney's. And I had a lot of feedback on Facebook because I'm pretty involved there. And people were like, we don't need that second storage unit on the opposite side of Kohler. So it's like, why are they just using that space up in a prime location? Because I look at that entry, it's right by the arena coming in. That's where people are going to come in. We could have some nice shopping areas. I know there's some talk in the past of supercenter type grocery stores going in. And not a lot of people, businesses want to come in and build right next to a storage facility. So I just looked at that as a lost opportunity in the future, potentially.
Well, but on the other hand, I mean, there's only so much that you can put in that property because of the airport overlay.
That's true. We
And
can't put.
it's, I mean, your options are so limited.
It's slightly limited. I mean, we can't do a hotel. We could do another big box store like Walmart.
Can't do a
We could-
restaurant.
Can't do a restaurant. You can do small restaurants, like there was a Subway right next door to the old Walmart, so you can obviously do your fast food, like I think a limited amount of people type restaurant. So I mean, there is still options. So I just looked at it as there's so much possibility in that land. I mean, why would you just want to put a storage unit in a gateway right to the city?
Although, people paying taxes is people paying taxes. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and what have we really seen come forward over the course of how many years? And here you've
Yep.
got someone who did come forward.
Yeah, the past is a good indicator, but it's always not an indicator of the future. I mean, we never had the arena before. You know, there's the brew pub that went in right by the arena that wasn't even on the horizon a
Yeah,
couple years ago. So
yeah.
you just never know what our future holds.
Sure. So let's talk about the arena a little bit because it is a really wonderful thing for Oshkosh. The thing that I noticed though is there doesn't seem to be enough parking.
I know we've went to a couple games and it's very rigid how they have it. I think they got to do a lot of planning yet. I know they met the minimum parking stalls for the arena capacity, but it
Yeah.
just seems like there's a lot of overflow onto side streets, which you know in the winter it's hard to walk because it's cold and
Yeah.
snow and.
Well, it's hard to
little
even
kids.
drive down the street because
Yep.
you've got parking in many cases on both sides, and you're trying to, you know, and the plows don't necessarily plow all the way to the edge of the street.
Yeah, like one of the games we went to, my wife dropped me and my boys off because it was just I wasn't gonna work with that parking.
Yeah. So are you saying that there are more options for additional parking, or?
Well, you just never know what the future holds. I mean, there's a lot of structures around there. Say in a couple of years, who knows what moves in and allows it to have more parking. Could potentially use it for events.
Okay, all right. Well, it's going to be interesting, as you said, with graduations, because I just got that email today too from the school district that you know both commencement ceremonies are going to be there.
Back to back, yeah.
Yeah. One starts at noon and the other one at 3:30, I think. So, you know, do you know how many cars that lot holds offhand? Not to put you on the spot.
I don't know exactly. I have a number in my head that was like 600 because I
Okay.
think it was like one in every 4 to 5 people needed a parking spot
Okay.
according to the ordinance of
Well,
parking.
people need to get there early.
Yeah, yep,
I
yep,
guess
definitely.
if you want a space to park. So, you know, what has been probably the most challenging issue for you on council so far since last April when you were sworn in?
Yeah, all the people on the council have been very supportive of me. I've had tons of questions. They've all answered and they've all come through. So it's been a great team. Probably the marijuana issue was the big one.
Really?
Yeah, because it was very challenging because I did all this background study on it, and we debated it, and obviously there's people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s on council, so it's a good melting pot. But every generation has a little different thought process of what's acceptable, and what was acceptable in like 1960 or 70 isn't really comparable to nowadays. Like I look at it as there's good laws and bad laws, and even though it's a law, it doesn't mean that it's a good law. You look at history, there's the wrong side of history and the right side of history. So I just look at it as there's a lot of good benefits to marijuana that can be compared to, say, like if you look at alcohol, it's really a recreational drug too. Alcohol is, where marijuana, if you have cancer or if there's kids with seizures, there's a lot of different benefits to marijuana too.
Sure.
So,
Although those folks get medical.
well, medical
you know,
marijuana is illegal in Wisconsin, so they don't
so-
have that. They're a criminal.
Well,
if
right,
they-
but what I'm saying is that in a lot of states, it is a totally separate thing for medical use as opposed to
Correct.
recreational use. Here, they don't have that option at all, so I see
So I
what
was
you're
just
saying
trying to
there.
get more in line with the ordinance of the more progressive cities like Madison, Milwaukee. Even Neenah is following those cities, and I look at Neenah as a very progressive city. And
yeah.
I'm not trying to pattern us after Neenah. I'm trying to pattern us off Milwaukee, Madison, kind of grow on
Sure.
what's acceptable and what's not.
So that's an issue that your answer kind of surprised me, actually. I know that's a passionate issue for a lot of people, but I really kind of thought that you were going to say the Oshkosh Corporation
Well,
thing was going to be the biggest and
Yeah.
most emotionally impacting.
It was the biggest issue, but I work at Oshkosh Corp, so I had to recuse myself from
Yeah,
everything. So
yeah.
I really wanted to dig in on it and give my opinions, but I didn't get to go to any of the closed sessions. I didn't get to vote on anything. So it's like I have all this knowledge about Oshkosh Corp, and I couldn't even share it. So it was kind of frustrating.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I would have liked to.
Were you working for Oshkosh Corp last year when you ran?
Yep, I've been there
Okay.
since 2004.
Okay. It was some other candidate that I'm thinking of, and maybe it wasn't even last year, who worked at Quad Graphics.
Okay.
So that's I was thinking you worked at Quad. So yeah, did people still contact you though?
Oh, in the early stages, yeah, and I just kept on having to say, I recused myself from the discussion. Can't really give my opinion,
Yeah.
So
Well, you got
was
off
hard.
pretty easy.
Yeah, I would have liked to have been involved though. It's a big landmark decision
Yeah.
in Oshkosh, probably the biggest one council's had in a
Yeah.
long time, if not
Yep,
ever.
I would say so. I would say so. So I don't know if you got to see any part of the first half with
Yeah, a
the
little.
two
I
Steves.
dipped in at the end.
We were talking about economic development and so forth, and we've touched on that a little bit. Anything that you want to add to the economic development discussion?
Well, I just want people to look at Oshkosh and look at us as a winner of a city, that we have options in our future that other cities don't have. Like we have a professional basketball team. And people are coming from Appleton, from Fond du Lac to come to Oshkosh. So I just look at, if there's business ideas that you want to bring to Oshkosh, bring them. We're a very business-friendly city, even though some people say we're not.
Yeah.
We are. So I look at just bring your ideas and let's see where we can go with it.
Okay, fantastic. One of the things that I had on the list to talk to the mayor and deputy mayor about, and we never got around to it, so I'll bring it up with you, is the State of the City is
Sure.
coming up on March 15th. I don't recall what day of the week that falls on, but March 15th, and it's going to be over at the Convention Center this year. Was it there well, you weren't on
think
council
it
last
was.
year, so that's not a fair question for you. But for anyone who's unaware what the State of the City is, all the departments in the city are represented at State of the City. The city manager makes I don't want to call it a speech, but in essence it is a speech. He talks about the things that have happened in Oshkosh, good or bad, over the last year, and this is something that he does every year.
Yeah, it's kind of like comparable to like the President's State of the Union or the State of the State. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of letting people know what we've accomplished in the last year and
Yep.
what we can feel good about and what we can look forward
Yeah,
to the future.
Exactly, and so this will be your first one, so something exciting for you to think about.
Definitely.
and-
I guess
and
we get to
plan for.
participate a little
Yes,
in it too, so I'm excited
absolutely.
to see what the plan is.
And I just want to mention that I am fortunate enough to serve on the Rental Housing Advisory Board for the city. And we're taping this now on the 15th of February. Yesterday we had a meeting for our board, and we have decided that we are going to have a small table at State of the City also. You know, we're going to promote our new Facebook page that just rolled out February 1st. We'll have some brochures there on safe housing and smart rental things that people need to know. So we're looking forward to that. And if you haven't yet, and you probably haven't because this just rolled out 2 weeks ago, if you haven't seen our Facebook page, just go to Facebook, and you can look it up under City of Oshkosh Rental Housing Advisory Board. You can just probably type in Oshkosh rental housing. It'll come up a number of different ways, but there's not a lot of things posted right now, but there will be a number of posts per week that we're trying to do. So that is already rolled out, and it's going to be good information, not just for renters, not just for landlords, but for homeowners in general.
Yeah,
So,
good education, it sounds like.
yeah, absolutely. So excited to be a part of that. We talked about the marijuana fines being lowered. Now, the city has also just adopted a private side lead service line replacement program. Tell us what that is and how does that affect us as citizens?
Well, our city's old, so a lot of the older parts of the city has lead pipes, and there's going to be programs to look at them and figure out where they are and replace, and there's going to be assistance programs to help people finance those.
Okay.
So it's something that Oshkosh is progressively encouraging people to look at.
So it's the individual property owners or homeowners lead pipes that we're looking at?
Yep, the lead up from the street.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of pipes and stuff underneath the city that are really old yet. I mean, we can only change so many every year.
Sure, yeah.
You know, I know up a couple of years ago there were still some from the early 1900s in some locations. So
Yeah.
it's prehistoric.
Yeah. So how will that work? I mean, how do you know if your lead pipes are going to be replaced?
Well, it's something that I think you can probably call the city and they can give you some good information on it. I know other cities are starting to look at the program too, because I mean the whole lead issue. I mean there's birth defects, there's learning disabilities, there's all kinds of problems that could potentially happen.
Sure.
So it's something that we really got to get ahead of if we possibly can.
So is the city systematically going through neighborhoods then, looking at doing this? Or, I mean, how is this as a program going to kind of be rolled out by
I think the
city?
citizens are going to have to be progressive on it and call and talk to them. I mean, if you have a house, you know, an older home, you potentially could have a lead pipe, you know, coming up. So it's something that the residents, I think, are going to have to look into.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So they should be proactive. They should call the city and see, does the city know if they have lead pipes, or do they have to test it somehow?
Honestly, I'm not quite sure if we have a program of documents that show which ones are which, you know, but I'm sure there's some program somewhere that.
Okay. But there's going to be, if someone does have to have their lead pipes replaced, there's going to be financial assistance in place for
And that's
citizens.
something we encourage to do, you know, for now and for the future.
Okay. The use of remainder of the golf course land. I know that you had to recuse yourself from the vote, but the other land that is not going to be occupied by Oshkosh Corp, you certainly have, you can have a voice in, and
I
you're
can
going to
dig
have
in
a
on that
vote
one,
on.
yeah.
So what are you hearing from folks as to what they'd like to see there?
They want areas for everybody. I mean, they would love like some boat docks, or the Riverwalk's going to go right around it, even past Oshkosh Corp along the water side. So it's just going to be much more open to the people. There was talk that original concepts of having some businesses go in there, and we kind of just shut that down, and we don't really like that idea. We like more community parks, you know, stuff like that, something that people can just come and visit as a family. You know.
Will there be, and I'm sure that this has been one of the ideas brought up, but will there be like a 9-hole golf course there?
That's one of the proposals. It just depends. I mean, the city ran the 18-hole golf course, so we got to look at the possibilities of running a 9-hole golf course, or if we want to even, and seeing where financially, if it can support itself or if it has to be assisted. So I'm kind of thinking we had that voting system, that Polco.
Yes.
we did a survey on there, and about 75% of the people wanted green space, not a golf course. So I think overall the whole city kind of wants green space. They probably don't want a golf course.
Okay. I wonder where all those golfers went that signed that petition, you know?
Yeah.
And why didn't they speak up on that? Because I do think of a golf course somewhat as green space. I mean, yeah, you have to enjoy it. You have to be golfing.
You got to be a golfer. You can't go fishing off the water.
Right.
It's for
but
golf.
it is kind of green space. And I think golf courses, by and large, are pretty.
Oh,
to
they're
look
beautiful.
At,
They're
you know.
landscaped beautifully.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, we talked about pole coal, but or pocol.
Okay, that's a hard one to pronounce.
It is POCOL.
Okay.
Tell folks what that is.
It's a thing that we got as the city to run voting for public input of different things.
Surveys and things.
Surveys of what's coming up in Oshkosh, just ideas, getting some feedback. It's just another way to talk to the citizens and get engagement.
And people can find that how? By going to the city's website?
You can go, I think we got a link on there, and I think you can go on your smartphone and download the app. It took about a minute, and I voted on the golf course one.
Okay.
So it's really easy on your Apple or Android phones. So
Okay.
real easy.
There's another app that the city has rolled out recently, and at first it was called See Click Fix, and now it's also known as Oshkosh Connect. But you can download the app by going to the App Store or whatever the Android version is, and either enter in See Click Fix or enter in Oshkosh Connect. But it is a way that if you see a pothole, for example, that needs to be filled, you can just put in the address, or you can take a picture of the pothole itself, and it just hones in on where that address is, or you can enter in the address or the nearest location, and it's another way of reporting things to the city.
And you don't have to list your name. You can do it anonymously.
Right, you can do it anonymously. Although I have noticed that when the city responds back to let you know what's happened with that, if you want to respond back, then your name does come up. So that, I'm not real big on that, because if someone wants to remain anonymous, then they want to remain anonymous throughout the whole process. However, I don't want to discourage people from doing this, because it really is a great way of not just saving time for staff, because they don't have to be answering the phone calls all the time, but it's just a way for you to anonymously report things, whether it's a pothole, whether it's someone who keeps their yard looking like crap, or they keep their garbage cans out long after they should be brought in, or whatever. So anyway, that's a good thing too. So we're almost out of time. That went fast.
That didn't feel like 20 or 30 minutes. No, it didn't.
No. Well, I think it was closer to 20. It wasn't 30, but it went by fast. But you know what? Between you and the two Steves, we got everything covered.
Awesome.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for
Thank
being
you.
here. You're doing a good job on council.
And so are you.
And-
You've been on TV for a long time, and thank you
Yes.
for your service in
well,
Oshkosh,
thank
too.
you. Thank you. And on the board as well.
Yep,
So,
everywhere, yeah.
all right. That's going to do it for us. Thanks to our guests tonight. Thanks to the crew, and most of all, thanks to you. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep your eye on Oshkosh. We've got our eye on. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh. Good night. I've done this for so long.